again to another exciting series in my videos where I'll be taking you through JAMB syllabus. And today we'll be looking at the 15th topic of the JAMB syllabus, which is basic ecological concept. So if you look at the JAMB syllabus here, it talks about factors affecting distribution of organisms, then how you should be able to identify abiotic components of the ecosystem, and also the biotic component of the ecosystem. So for the abiotic, you remember they are the non-living component of the ecosystem, and the biotic factors are the living component of the ecosystem. So you should also be able to measure how to measure this abiotic component, like temperature, rain, um, turbidity, pH, the soil conditions, and how all of these affect distribution of organisms. I'll tell you, this is one of the shortest topic in the JAMB syllabus, and we're going to be using about 30 questions to explain this topic. Going back to the book, Explicit Biology, if you can get it, I would advise you do. If you can't, let's continue following the lectures online here. So in the book, we have a very quick overview of the topic and how to define some basic ecological concepts, such as these you have here: ecology, ecology, environment, what is habitat, types of habitats, define what population is, define a community, define a niche, define a biome, define the atmosphere, define the biosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and also environmental factors such as the biotic or the non-living factors. What are they? The climatic factors such as rain, light, wind, I mentioned that. Topographic factors such as nature of soil, and also edaphic factors such as soil types and properties. The living factors or the living component or biotic factors, that includes activities of living things. For example, feeding, shading from light, competition among organisms, dispersal of fruit, predators, where one organism feed on the other. All of that constitutes what the living component of the ecosystem contributes to the ecosystem entirely. As a matter of fact, the interaction of this living and the non-living component is what gives the concept of ecosystem. So, ecological factors in different habitats, like in aquatic habitats, the prevailing factors will be the soil content, that's salinity, then also the visibility of the water or the clarity of the water, that's turbidity. You talk about tide and you talk about current. Of course, these are unique only to the aquatic habitat. All right, so how do you measure um, these ecological factors, particularly the abiotic factors? You have different instruments like an anemometer for measuring the speed of wind, the barometer for measuring atmospheric pressure, hydrometer for measuring relative humidity. You talk about the insect net or sweep net. You talk about the thermometer for temperature, wind vane for wind direction, rain gauge for measuring amount of rainfall, quadrant for determining population of organism. Talk about putter for collecting small insects. They talk about photometer or light meter for measuring light intensity. You talk about the Secchi disk for measuring turbidity of water and also pH indicator. That summarizes what you are expected to know in this chapter. We go ahead to look at some set of 30 questions. Now we begin with the very first question, which is UME 1978, question 18. Now this question says, the study of organisms and the environment of an abandoned farmland is the ecology of A, community, B, population, C, species, D, habitat, and you have E, ecosystem. Of course, the word community means naturally occurring group of plants or animals living in an area. Okay, the question says the study of the organism and the environment of an abandoned farmland is the ecology of. All right, community doesn't fit in. Let's talk about groups of plants and animals living in an area. Now, this doesn't here. What we have here, it doesn't tell us whether the organism here and the abandoned farmland are in the same place. So, community is not the answer. Population here refers to total number of individuals of the same species living in a particular area. it still doesn't make sense, right? What are species? Group of organisms that can interbreed, right? Doesn't make sense either. And what about habitat? Habitat, that's the natural home of an organism. Doesn't make sense. The right answer to this question will be option E, and the reason is because ecosystem is a self-supporting unit consisting of the biotic. Now, the study of living organism, that's the biotic here, and the environment, the study of the environment of an abandoned farmland, that's the abiotic or the abiotic. So when you have the interaction, that continuous interaction of biotic and the abiotic components, that gives you the total, the full picture, which is the ecosystem, right? Question number 2. A population is defined as a collection of similar organisms. A population is defined as a collection of similar organisms that A, behave in the same way, B, interbreed freely, C, found in the same habitat, and D, eat the same food. If you go back to the definition we have here, the total number of individuals of the same species in a particular area, same species. When you take a population, you are looking at same species, population of maize on the field, population of toad in the pond. That's you can't take population of fish and toad. Okay, so you can't mix different species together when you take a population statistic. So in that case, they have to be the same species. And what is the definition of a species? Organisms that can interbreed freely. So that is why B would be the right answer to question number 2. Question number 3. What is the term used to describe the sum total of biotic and abiotic factors in the environment of the organism? We mentioned that in question 1, and that is ecosystem. The next question says, use the list of ecological constituents below to answer questions 4 and 5. So you're given this list. Number 1, mango. Number 2, spear grass. Number 3, goat. Number 4, sheep. Number 5, temperature. Number 6, beans. Number 7, rock. Number 8, water. Right. So the question then says, item 1 to 4, that's question number 4. Item 1 to 4 can be regarded as A, a population, B, a community, C, an ecosystem, D, a niche. What are the components of items 1 to 4? 1 is mango, B is spear grass again, 3 is, 1 is mango, 2 is spear grass, 3 is goat, 4 is sheep. What does this tells you about what you have in 1 to 4? They are different species, number 1, right? They are not the same species, right? And they are all living things, right? So what else do they have in common? Why you have this as plant, this is animal, right? That will be the definition of a community. Now go back again to see the definition of a community here. A community is a naturally occurring group of plants and animals living in a given area. So the right answer to this will be a community. Question number 5. Physical factors are represented by, so which of these represent physical factors? What are physical factors to begin with? These are the abiotic factors. So which of these represent physical factors? You have temperature, you have rock, you have water, and that will be 5, 7, 8. Which of the option carries 5, 7, 8? Option C, and that is the right answer. So to buttress what I mentioned earlier, it's not just enough to, this topic is very short, no doubt, but there are ways questions can be twisted that if you do not read to understand this topic very well, you might miss the interpretation of the question. It's not enough to just be able to just learn this basic ecological concept, for example, to define the terms. You should be able to apply this concept when you see a question. So what's important for what I see that is important for this topic in this JAMB exam is your ability to interpret and apply the question in different ways. All right, question number 6. The number of plant species obtained from a population study of a garden is as follows. You have guinea grass 15, pony species 5, cedar species 7, and imperator species 23. What is the percentage of occurrence of imperator species? A 35, B 16%, C 46%, D 13%. I want to believe that this is a very straightforward mathematical problem. What is the percentage of imperator? This is just simple percentage calculation. So first and foremost, you need to sum up the total number of the different species. If you add up 7 plus 5 plus 15 plus 5 plus 7 plus 23, this will give you a total number of 50, right? So if you have a total number of 50 as the total number of species, then what is the number of imperator species itself? And that is from the question, imperator species 23. So then you say 23 over 50, right, times 100 over 1. If you do this division, I bet you will get 46%, and this will be your answer. So that is a simple and straightforward question. Question number 7. A caterpillar and an aphid living in different of the same habitat. I can't understand. Let me see. I think this question was typographically, there's a typographical error here. A caterpillar and an aphid living, I'm sure, in different parts of the same habitat can be set to, okay, let me see if that question makes sense very well. Okay, I think it says a caterpillar and an aphid living in different parts of the same plant, living in different parts of the same plant are said to, they are said to occupy different ecological niche. Now, you know what a niche is? It's the smallest area within an habitat. The smallest area within an habitat. So they will be said to occupy different ecological niche. Let me break this down in a very lay way, in a layman's explanation. If you have your school is it's an habitat, for example. Now you go to your classroom, and in your classroom you have a particular seat you like to sit down. That is your niche. You know, that smallest space within the habitat. Okay, so let's say your school is your community, your classroom is your habitat, and where you sit, your desk itself, will then be your ecological niche. I think that is a very layman's way of putting this across. Let's proceed to question number 8. The correct order of the ecological sequence in nature is, so you talk about species, you talk about population, you talk about community, you talk about ecosystem. Now, what I want you to pick very well here, the least in all of these options is the species. The highest in all of these options would be the ecosystem, because it's from the ecosystem you go down. From ecosystem you go to community. From community you go to population. From population you go to habitat. From habitat you go to species or niche and so on. So, but in these options, for this question in view, species is the least. So the correct order will be species to ecosystem, and the right answer is A. Let's move on to question number 9. The highest level of ecological organization. The highest level would be, okay, so in this given option now, what do you think is the highest level? Population is within ecosystem, right? And a niche will be the smallest from this given option. But what about biosphere? Remember that the biosphere is that part of the earth, right? Biosphere is that part of the earth and its atmosphere in which the living organisms exist and is capable of supporting life. So that part of the earth that is capable of supporting life is the biosphere, and it's a very vast. I mean, the biosphere is where we live, right? Every living organism is able to live because it's in the biosphere, the part that supports life. So, and that will be very vast compared to the ecosystem, which just talks about interaction between plant and animal. I mean, the living and non-living. All right. So in this option, C will be our best answer. Question number 10. The functional position of an organism on the ecosystem is referred to as. Now, what is the functional position? It brings us back again to that smallest space, which is ecological niche. The right answer is B. Question 11. A group of organisms of the same species living together in the same habitat are referred to as population. B. That's another repeated question. A group of closely related organisms capable of interbreeding are referred to as species. Okay, now we're done with that. We'll move on to factors affecting distributions of organisms. Which of the following groups of factors is completely abiotic? So we have abiotic to be the non-living component, right? So salinity, tide, plankton, and turbidity. Now, plankton has already nullified this option. Plankton are plants, living organisms. We have temperature, pH, soil, insect. Insect nullify this. Wind, altitude, humidity, and light. We don't need to go further. The right answer here will be C, option C. Now, if you go further, you'll see that conifers are living. You see here, bacteria are living. And so they can be the right answer. Question number 14. In an agricultural system, the biotic component consists of what forms the biotic component? In an agricultural ecosystem, you have the crop, the pest, and beneficial insects. You have the crop, the temperature, and humidity. Now, this is wrong. You have the pest, the beneficial insect, and water. This is wrong. You have the crop, water, and soil. This is also wrong. So in the option, everything has to be the living plant component or plant and animal. That's the biotic component. So the right answer to question 14 is A. Question 15. Which of the following ecological factors are common to both terrestrial and aquatic? Terrestrial means land, aquatic means water. So what is common to them? First and foremost, temperature will be common to them, right? What else will be common to them? Light will be common to them, right? What else will be common? Rainfall, I think so. Let's look at the options then. You have rainfall, temperature, light, and wind. Let's keep that option. Let's quickly go through the rest. Salinity. Salinity doesn't have anything to do with land. True or false? True. Now, what about tide? It doesn't have anything again to do with land. Tide is only aquatic. What about, okay, again, we have salinity here. This has nothing to do with land. So we go back to option A, rainfall, temperature, light, and wind. This is the right answer. Question number 16. Which of the following relates to edaphic factors? Remember, edaphic factors refers to soil factors. So without wasting time, what here represents soil? So edaphic factor, the structure of the earth surface, A. B, the influence of living organisms on each other, C, temperature, rainfall, and humidity, D, the influence of soil on plant and animal. And that is the right answer. 17. Which of the following has the greatest influence on the distribution of animals in marine and freshwater habitats? You have pH, you have salinity, you have water current, and you have turbidity. Which of the following has the greatest influence on the distribution of animals in marine and freshwater habitat? Okay, so in other words, you are looking at what is common to both marine and freshwater habitats. Is that right? Because if you look at salinity, that's only common to marine, right? Water current would be more common to marine as well. Turbidity, I'm not too sure. But if you look at these options, I would go for pH. Yes, pH would be the right answer in this question. Reason being that pH would affect both marine and freshwater habitats. And that is the final answer. Question 18. The most important factors which influence an organism's way of life in its habitat are: number one, the physical and biotic environment; number two, food and water availability; C, temperature, water, light, and predator-prey relationship; and D, competition for food and space. Of course, A would be the right answer because an environment is everything surrounding an organism that affects it. So remember, this says the physical and the biotic. So the biotic already captures predator-prey relationship, while the physical captures temperature, light, water, turbidity, and name all the physical factors. So the right answer here would be A. Question 19. The most important physical factors, I guess, which affect an organism living in intertidal zone of the seashore. What do you mean by intertidal? That's the zone that is exposed to wave actions. So the organisms that are there would really be affected, right? So the most important physical factor which affects an organism living in the intertidal zone would be wave action. C. Question 20. A density dependent factor that regulates the population size of organisms is density dependent factor. So what do you mean by density dependent factors? Those are factors that affect population growth, either by increasing or decreasing as the population changes. So let me give you an example. For example, predation, food, competition, diseases, those can actually affect, right? They can affect either organisms will continue to grow if there's food, or if there's scarcity of food, organism population will reduce. So those are density dependent factors. A density dependent factors that regulate the population size of an organism would be: number one, you have sudden flood, you have disease, you have fire outbreak, and D, you have drought. So the right answer in this case would be option B. I'll go for option B, which is diseases. Okay, so um, others will not affect the size of organism. They may affect the amount of organism over time, but in terms of the size, disease will be more appropriate answer. Question 21. A biotic factor which affects the distribution and abundance of organism in a terrestrial habitat. In a terrestrial habitat, you have temperature, you have competition, you have pH, and you have light. What's the keyword to spot the answer to this question at a go? Biotic factor. Biotic. Now look at all the options here. Temperature, pH, light. What are these? These are abiotic factors, right? So competition is the only biotic factor in this option. Question 22. An ecological factor that will have the most limiting effect on the abundance of phytoplankton in a turbid pond would be, so a turbid pond will impair the penetration of water, right? Sorry, a turbid pond would impair the penetration of light, and that will also limit that intensity of light needed for photosynthesis. Is that right? So the right answer here would be C. Question 23. The main ecological problem facing intertidal organisms. The main ecological problem. Remember intertidal, what affects them the most will be wave, right? We mentioned wave in the last question related to this. But look at the options to this question 23. So intertidal organisms, remember, they are very exposed to the wave. So the main problem of intertidal organism would be the exposure and the resulting drying out when the tide reduces. So to overcome this, organisms in sandy and muddy shores usually dig deep into the soft ground, and in some other cases, some of them with shells would always withdraw from their protective shells. So organisms have developed ways over time to manage these intertidal challenges. So drying out is one of the major problems with these intertidal organisms. Question 24. In freshwater marshes and swamp, the most important abiotic factors that affect organisms, that organisms have to adapt to, rather, is, okay, so first, marshes and swamp are characterized by high salinity, tidal movement, waterlogged soil, and anaerobic soil, resulting in high acidity. So the right answer to this question, with high acidity, there will be low pH. With high acidity, it means the pH is low. Remember the pH scale. You have this point to be 7, neutral, and anything that goes up here will be alkalinity, up to 14. And anything below this 7, down to 1, will be highly acidic. So anything that is highly acidic, it simply means it has a low pH. Question 25. The activity of an organism which affects the survival of another organism in the same habitat constitute A, a abiotic factor, B, biotic factor, C, physiographic factor, D, a daphic factor. I think that's a straightforward answer. One organism affecting the other. Both of them are living. Biotic factor. B is the right answer. Question 26. So we're now on methods of measuring abiotic and biotic factors. So 26, it says an anemometer is an instrument for measuring, what's it? Wind speed. So I will just be taking the answers in this case. Wind speed, anemometer. The next question says the transect method can be used in ecology to show, what is the transect method used for? The transect method is one method used for estimating the number and types of plants in a particular area. So the right answer to that would be option B. Question 28. Question 28. The turbidity of a pond can be measured using the Secchi disk. Question number 29. Which of the following instruments is not used in measuring the biotic factors? We have hygrometer. Remember what this is used for? Thermometer, wind vane. Microscope is used for what? For measuring biotic, right? So the right answer to question 29 is B. Is A, microscope. Lastly, but not the least, question number 30, where I'm going to stop today. It says the depth of illumination in a water body can be measured. Again, the depth of illumination. That's another way to say turbidity can be measured with A, photometer, B, Secchi disk, C, hydrometer, and D, anemometer. Because the depth of illumination is another word for turbidity. So the right answer to question 30 is B, Secchi disk. So on this note, we have come to the end of topic 15 of the JAMB syllabus, which is basic ecological concepts. I'll proceed with the next topic in my next video. I hope this makes sense. Thank you for joining today. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like, and share. I want us to quickly rush through the topic so we can continue. I can now go back to teaching chemistry. On that note, see you in the next one. Bye.